Content warning for suicide, drug use, graphic imagery, transphobia, multiple references to dead naming, police brutality, and adult themes. Because this show is very horny. Also, I apologize in advance for any names I mess up on this one. I promise I did my best. Oh, and one more warning. The last section of this video, Chapter 6, includes some clips with pretty intense flashing lights. I'll include some time codes in the description for sensitive viewers. And, spoiler alert, for all of Sense8. And finally, this is your regular reminder that these are just my opinions, and art is subjective. So, Sense8 is a show that I kind of can't believe happened. Like, when you think about it. It was one of the early flagships for Netflix's burgeoning series of original programs back in 2015 after the success of shows like House of Cards, Marco Polo, and Orange is the New Black. It had a wildly diverse cast, fluid sexuality, it filmed all over the world and cost millions to make, and was just so good. So let's talk about Sense8. Sense8 first aired in 2015 with its final special airing in June of 2018. And it's a hard show to talk about because it is so jam-packed with ideas and genres and characters, but let's start with the basic premise. 8 people across the world one day find themselves mentally connected. This cluster of people are, as it turns out, a new species of human known as Sense8s. They can sort of mentally pop in with each other for a chat. They call this visiting. Or in a pinch, one person can take over for another if, for example, you find yourself in a fist fight and you can't fight for shit, but your new Korean brain friend can. They call this sharing, because they're sharing knowledge and skills and stuff. Oh, and there is a shadowy organization that is trying to track down Sense8s for shadowy purposes. So these 8 new Sense8s have to band together to protect each other and themselves in this wild and turbulent new reality they face. And that's just the basic premise, so deep breath. Let's do the usual rundown. It's a big one. There's Brian J. Smith as Will Gorski, a cop in Chicago, and one of the few actors I knew going into this series. He was actually one of the leads on Stargate Universe. Hey Scott, how's it going? And yeah, the show has a cop on it, and we'll get to that in a minute. Oh, and his dad in the show was a Wachowski regular, Joe Pantoliano, who you might recognize as Cypher from The Matrix. Then there's Tuppence Middleton as Riley Blue Gunnarsdottir, an Icelandic DJ living in England trying to escape her tragic past. She's one of 2 actresses you might recognize from a role in Jupiter Ascending, which I personally didn't catch until after I saw the first season of Sense8, but I digress. Doona Bae plays Sun Bok, a businesswoman and underground kickboxer in South Korea. Oh, and yes, you guessed it, Doona Bae was also in Jupiter Ascending, and Cloud Atlas. You might also remember her from one of Bong Joon-ho's early films, The Host. Jamie Clayton plays Nomi Marks. She's a transgender hacker living in San Francisco, and she's played by a trans actress. Hell yeah! I would expect no less from Lana and Lily Wachowski, but it's still a thing to celebrate, especially back when this premiered in 2015. Anyways, Nomi's girlfriend Amanita is played by Freema Agyeman, aka Martha Jones from Season 3 of Doctor Who. God, I love this cast. Tina Desai plays Kala Dandekar. She's a trained pharmacist and devout Hindu living in Mumbai who is engaged to be married to Rajan Rasal, played by Purab Kohli. Max Reimelt plays Wolfgang Bogdanov, a locksmith, safecracker, and all-around fighty boy who is ready to fuck shit up at literally any time. He is based in Berlin and has a best friend named Felix, who is played by Maximilian Moff. We have Lido Rodriguez, played by Miguel Angel Silvestre. He's a closeted gay actor in Mexico City with his secret live-in boyfriend Hernando, played by Alfonso Herrera, and also a pretend public girlfriend, Daniela, played by Erendira Ibarra. And rounding out our main cluster, there's Capheus Onyango, a matatu driver in Nairobi, Kenya. In the first season, he's played by Amil Amin. The actor left the show somewhat abruptly during the beginning of production for season 2. There are lots of articles that speculate why, but it's mostly hearsay, and I don't want to malign anybody involved. the character was recast in Season 2 with actor Toby Onwumere. There's also Naveen Andrews as Jonas Maliki, a mysterious member of another cluster who can be a friend and adversary. You might remember him as Saeed on Lost. Also, Daryl Hannah, who you might recall from Blade Runner, plays Angelica Turing, who, well, she birthed our main cluster. That's a whole thing. And then Terrence Mann plays a guy we mostly know as Whispers. He's our big bad, if you couldn't tell by his whole everything. And that's just the cast. I told you this show is big. I'll get to the creators, but I'm going to try. Oh my god, do I try? Yeah, I'm gonna try to, as succinctly as possible, do a recap of this show. With 8 main characters and all of their own individual plot lines, this is kind of more involved than the usual recap, but if I don't do one of these, this video is just going to devolve into, hey, remember that one scene that was really cool? And that other scene that was really cool? Hey, you remember that one time? So here we go. So Season 1. We start with this woman, Angelica. She's alone in this big busted up church and she's, well, it looks and sounds like she's giving birth. Suddenly there's a man with her, Jonas Maliki. And although he's there with her, the scene is edited and filmed in such a way where the audience knows he's definitely not physically there. And then the birth seems to, happen when we get this montage of these 8 people all around the world, and all of them seem to see Angelica.
Protect them.
Also, this asshole Whispers shows up, and he's creepy and menacing.
Go.
Is that Jonas?
Please.
Tell him I'm looking forward to meeting him.
Jonas and Whispers seem to know the other is taking up real estate in this woman's head, but they don't see each other. And again, both of them are in her head. And then, when the flesh and blood Whispers shows up, Angelica kills herself. And from what we can tell, this is somehow meant to stop him from whatever his nefarious deal is. And that's just the opening scene. So Will is a cop in Chicago going around with his partner Diego, played by Ness Batista. They hear a call about gang activity and find this kid who's been shot. Will takes him to the hospital in spite of everybody objecting for some reason.
You do not want to stand there and let this kid die either. That's what he'd do if it was you or me.
Oh, and his dad is a former cop and current alcoholic, and the two have kind of a contentious relationship. Then one evening, Will meets Jonas by chance at a convenience store, and according to the authorities, Jonas is supposedly a terrorist. So this first meeting doesn't exactly go well.
Don't do this, Will.
What the fuck?
You spent your life trying to understand what happened to you. If you don't let me go, you might never find out.
He is the one who explains a lot of the Sense8 rules to Will and to us. The intricacies of visiting, which can be done between any Sense8, but if it's outside the cluster, visiting can only happen after 2 Sense8s make physical eye contact. And sharing can only happen between the 8 members of any given cluster. Oh, and because Will catches him by way of a car accident, the FBI carts Jonas away before he can explain too much, because this show's mysteries have to unfurl slowly, you know. There's Riley in England with her often hinted at, but as yet to be revealed, tragic past. She's a DJ, and she's gotten mixed up with some bad people. These guys all shoot each other over money or drugs or whatever, while Riley's high on some stuff. And she gets the hell out of there, but the jerks find her again. Will has a very public freakout in a bar full of cops, but also helps her escape. And Will and Riley keep having these mental meet-cutes.
I think it is safe to say we're not going crazy.
Oh my god, this is so cool.
Kala, the pharmacist in Mumbai, is engaged to this guy, Rajan. Everybody seems very excited because he's handsome and rich. There's a decadent party complete with a full-on Bollywood dance number, and it seems Raj's infatuation is quite genuine, but Kala seems unsure about the whole thing. Also, due to this new mental connection, she discovers Wolfgang and might be into him. Then she sees him naked at her wedding and passes out. Wolfgang, in Berlin, along with his friend Felix, steals some diamonds out of some apartment that his cousin was about to rob. They party hard, and at a club, Wolfgang sings What's Up by the Four Non-Blondes. And everybody sort of mentally joins in, especially Kala. Also, Wolfgang has a mountain of daddy issues, and his whole family seems to be like, oops, all crimes. Lito in Mexico is a closeted actor, and Daniela is just the latest woman he's stringing along so he can pretend to be straight in public. His secret boyfriend Hernando is adorable and incredibly patient, even as Daniela sort of inserts herself further into their lives once she learns Lito is gay.
This is like a dream come true.
Eventually, the three become quite close. Also, Daniela has a rich and abusive ex-boyfriend named Joaquin. Oh, and one day, Lito accidentally picks up some of Sun's PMS.
There's a crying Korean woman.
I'm not crying.
There's a Korean woman standing next to me, and she's not crying the same way that I'm not screaming!
So we get the most iconic line in the history of television.
I see you, Miran, with your fucking Miran mustache!
Sun is a Korean businesswoman by day and underground kickboxer by night. She has a shitty brother and an emotionally distant dad, and when she finds out their company is being accused of embezzling, she agrees to take the fall to protect her father and brother, and she goes to prison for it. Capheus is a bus driver in Nairobi, Kenya. His bus is called the Van Damme after the actor Jean-Claude Van Damme because Capheus and his friend Jella, played by Paul Ogola, are big fans of the actor and his films. They basically subscribe to this life philosophy of like, what would Jean-Claude do? Also, his mom is sick with AIDS, and he spends all of their money to get her some good medication, and then the bus gets cornered by members of a gang called Superpower, who get on the bus to steal everybody's stuff, and they steal the medication.
We are the superpower! We take the fuck we want!
So, Capheus goes to get it back, and only manages it because of a well-timed mental connection with Sun. This scene kicks ass, by the way. Afterwards, he's something of a local legend, and he agrees to work for this shady guy, Silas Kibaka, driving his daughter to school in order to get his mom more meds. And when he gets in over his head, he begs for the spirit of Jean-Claude Korean lady to come help him out again. Nomi is a self-described hacktivist in San Francisco. She lives with her loving girlfriend, Amanita, and when her strange visions lead her to collapse at a pride parade, she ends up in a hospital where her mother shows up and dead names her constantly. Her mother and the doctors then go on to declare that her brain is broke, and they decide to operate on her without her consent.
You can't keep me here against my will.
I'm sorry, but we can.
Eventually, she breaks out of the hospital with some mental help from Will, who is still figuring out this whole visiting and sharing thing and knows how to bust out of a pair of handcuffs. And then some physical help from Amanita.
I gotcha.
From there, she's on the run from the authorities and out to find out why these people are after her and why that doctor wanted to lobotomize her.
I sense a costume opportunity.
Tired yet? We're about halfway through season 1, so hang on because none of our Sense8s understand what's happening yet. Most of them think they might be suffering a mental break, or they're just ignoring the weird shit they keep seeing and writing it all off as figments of the imagination. A couple of them just seem to be rolling with it, but the mental connections between them continue to grow stronger and draw them together. More and more, the Sense8 seem to reach out to each other in times of need. Nomi and Amanita's fact-finding mission leads them to the only patient who survived this procedure they tried to do on Nomi. His name is Niles Bolger, and he's completely catatonic. Then they follow that doctor who did the procedures, intercepting his phone calls, and they go sneaking into the doctor's apartment, which means they get to see the catatonic Niles Bolger impossibly show up and kill the doctor before killing himself. And it seems he was somehow being puppeteered by whispers. Then, in a later, incredible sequence, Nomi gets cornered by some cops and...
Someone please help me. Stay calm.
Oh, shit!
Get on your knees!
Will and Sun help her plan and fight her way out.
This guy's right hand, he's gonna go for your right wrist.
Now!
And then...
I don't know how to drive.
I do.
Capheus takes over to drive the getaway car. Also, at one point, they get some help from Nomi's old hacker friend, Bug. He knew her before her transition, and so he says some pretty off-color stuff initially, but Bug is pretty great.
The Bug suspected foul play.
Nomi and Amanita spend most of the rest of the season fact-finding and planning behind a keyboard. Oh, and Amanita is totally on board for the whole her girlfriend is mentally connected to 7 other people thing, like even before they have proof or anything.
Impossibility is a kiss away from reality.
Honestly, relationship goals. Meanwhile, Sun's in prison now, and I genuinely love her cellmates.
The embezzler.
You stole all of those investors' money?
Shamed the father and brother. And almost destroyed their company. Well done.
Her father comes to visit her and says he regrets letting her take the fall for things she didn't do, and he's going to reopen her case and admit everything. Then a few days or possibly weeks later, her brother comes and says their dad committed suicide. Son surmises that he had their father killed and...
Look at me, Tigger! I know why you did it. You will pay. I swear it!
She spends a lot of the rest of the season in solitary confinement. Capheus ends up getting waylaid by the superpower gang again. Apparently Silas Kibaka once killed this dude's sister, so they demand that Capheus deliver Kibaka's daughter to them or they'll kill Capheus's mom. He ends up going alone and they try to get him to kill Kibaka. Sun steps in to help him out again. This scene is hella violent, and after an extended car and bus chase with some assists from Will in a tight spot, Capheus escapes. So now Kibaka is safe, and so is his daughter. Kala's pretty peeved that a vision of Wolfgang might have ruined her wedding.
I don't know what is going on here. If one of the gods or goddesses is angry with me and has sent him a dangerous pervert demon who never seems to have any clothes on.
But it seems Rajan is chill and still very ready and willing to be married to Kala. Oh, and also his family is kinda shady. They run a drug company, but also Rajan's dad is involved in politics and he's looking to instate some law that might ban certain religious practices, so this happens. And also, Kala keeps seeing Wolfgang and clearly they're getting closer. Wolfgang and Felix end up in trouble when his cousin, the jerk with the diamonds they stole, comes for payback. Felix is shot and eventually Wolfgang has to hide him somewhere because his family clearly has it out for them. Then he goes to face down his cousin and ends up in another tight spot. Leto steps in to help him out because apparently Wolfgang doesn't know how to bullshit under pressure and he just needed to distract them for a minute.
Hey, did you mind?
I love this scene so much. And then Wolfgang blows them all up with a bazooka because of course he does.
Fucking hell! That's what I'm talking about!
Thank you.
And then he goes to take out his uncle's entire everything. Kala helps him build a bomb at one point when he's cornered, which sure is something. In Mexico, Daniela apparently took pictures of Leto and Hernando, and Joaquin steals her phone and blackmails them. So Daniela goes back to Joaquin to try and fix it.
He hit you.
We were negotiating.
This is wrong. You cannot go back to that asshole.
I told that asshole I would marry him if he left you alone.
And Leto is ready to let her go and just move on, but Hernando is heartbroken over the lengths that Leto is willing to go to protect his career at the expense of Daniela, so he leaves. Leto gets depressed in a hot tub, goes to some pretty dark places, and finally decides to fix it by getting Daniela back from Joaquin. Unfortunately, he's not great in a fight, so Wolfgang steps in. God, I love them both so much. This scene is the best. With Wolfgang's help, he gets her out of there and goes to reconcile with Hernando. So now the terrific trio are together again. Riley goes back to Iceland to be with her dad, and we find out a bunch of stuff like how this lady Yrsa convinced Riley when she was a kid that she was cursed and she shouldn't go back to Iceland. This lady is also a Sense8, I guess, who knows stuff about Jonas and Whispers and Angelica. She says Jonas and Angelica collaborated with Whispers to kill Sense8s, and apparently Sense8s communicate through a Sicilium network? It's a whole thing. Then, in one wild sequence, she watches her father play in an orchestra. All 8 Sense8s remember their literal birth, not the Sense8 birth. And Riley remembers when she gave birth to her child Luna, and there was a horrific car accident, and she collapses to the ground with blood dripping down her face. She ends up in a BPO facility, and Whispers is on his way to find her. In Chicago, Will gets suspended from the police force because of all the digging he's been doing into Whispers and everything. Between him and Nomi, they find out the guy is involved with a company called BPO, which stands for Biologic Preservation Organization, and when Riley collapses, he gets on a plane to Iceland to get her out of there. Oh, and remember the Sense8 eye contact thing I told you about for visiting outside the cluster? Well, Whispers is a Sense8, so if any of our heroes make eye contact with him, it's game over. He will be in their head, know what they know-ish, and be able to track down all of the other members of the cluster. So Will goes to Iceland, and with the help of every member of the cluster, he breaks Riley out of the BPO facility before they can cut into her head, but oops, he does make eyes at Whispers on the way out. Meanwhile, Riley is going on a traumatic flashback journey or something, vividly reliving the car accident that killed her husband while she was in labor, and at one point this happens.
Oh my god, what the fuck?
All the while, Will is trying to get them both to safety, and eventually they end up here, and everybody's about to give up, but Will decides to basically drug himself, because if he's asleep, Whispers can't find them through their mental connection. So he tells Riley to get herself together and get them both out because he loves her to bits and they should both live. When he wakes up, he's on a boat with Riley. She did it. She got them both out of there and saved them all. She injects Will with more knockout juice, and all the other Sense8s appear in the boat around them as they sail off into the unknown. That's season 1. Now let's talk about a few issues I have with the show. So some of the issues I have with the show are little things like, well, if you think too hard about it, this show could fall apart beneath the weight of its own internal logic. How come, when Will decides to stop taking drugs in season 2, he never seems to suffer from any withdrawal symptoms? How is Leto over there doing stunt bartending, interacting with stuff in this space while Nomi stands next to her girlfriend who can't see anything in particular happening? Well, my roommates and I have a concept we like to call, "It's Tuesday, don't worry about it." How does a boxing match against one dude in Seoul, Korea match up with a fight against 4 dudes in Kenya? It's Tuesday, don't worry about it. I'm sorry, did you say Sicilium Network? Is this like midichlorians? Well, you guessed it, it's Tuesday, don't worry about it. This is the sort of show that I wouldn't recommend overthinking because it would break the show. At some point, you just have to let yourself get swept up in it and not sweat the details because good God, they sure aren't. While some parts of this show are all Tuesdays, others are, well, a matter of personal taste. Like, for instance, I'm one of those people who really struggle watching scenes of public awkwardness or humiliation. I get that secondhand embarrassment really badly. And due to the nature of the show, where every character has 7 other voices in their heads, there are a lot of scenes that get really uncomfy.
You did this.
You did too.
Did what?
Uh-oh.
Tears are not sexy.
Sorry, I'm just feeling a little emotional.
Nope.
The fuck you doing, Gorski?
Oh God. Or there's the fact that I can respect and applaud the sensuality of this show because hooray representation, and that they are trying to encompass all of the human experience, but boy oh boy do they love a sex scene. And as an ace person, I don't get much out of that. Like, at most, I find them academically interesting, and I admire the choreography, but by the 3rd orgy, I have to shake my head with fond chagrin at the sheer horniness of this show. And another thing that I honestly don't know if this is an issue of me being a prude or an issue, but listen, I like having clear consent in romantic scenes in films. And while not every movie can be Portrait of a Lady on Fire, where the director literally put them both in face veils so they each had to choose to unveil before a kiss, making consent happen visually, like, okay, in films, consent is often assumed rather than clearly stated. If 2 characters start enthusiastically making out, we can assume that this is the filmic equivalent of 2 characters consenting to make out. Of course, in real life, consent should be crystal clear. If your partner isn't saying yes, then it's a no. Silence is not consent in real life. In Sense8, though, there are more than a couple of moments that are iffy when it comes to that clear consent, even when we're playing by film rules. And it pretty exclusively happens with men. It's either played for jokes or meant to be like, ooh, sexy. Like, for example, in season 2, when Leela just starts mentally, like, is this harassment or sexual assault if it's mental? Wolfgang pretty explicitly doesn't want this, at least not right now, and it's mostly played as a joke because, oh no, he looks weird to the non-Sense8s in the room. Most of Leela's screen time is devoted to her being pretty creepy towards Wolfgang, and like, I think she's a great villain, but I kinda wish there was a little less of this.
I thought it was time for us to get to know each other a little better.
Or in season 1, there's Daniela taking pictures of Lito and Hernando having sex without their permission, fetishizing them multiple times.
And it's so fucking hot, I can't even stand it. I love gay porn.
And trying to force herself on Lito before she realizes he's gay.
Danny, this is not gonna work.
This doesn't work. It's just a little harmless sex.
No.
So come on.
Again, played for jokes, although the photos do become a serious thing later. And to be clear, I don't think that the Wachowskis and J. Michael Straczynski had some secret agenda here. This is just a bit of a cultural blind spot that's very common. There's a great 2-part series from the Pop Culture Detective Agency about the sexual assault and harassment of men being played for laughs, and I'll link it in the description. But I am willing to chalk some of the points I just mentioned up to personal taste. What's not personal taste is the fact that this show features a main character who is a cop and is largely uncritical about it too. In the year of our Lord 2020, there's been a lot of re-examining of media that glorifies and romanticizes a law enforcement agency that frequently abuses its power at the expense of the citizens it was formed to protect. A study released earlier this year by the advocacy group Color of Change suggests that the crime genre glorifies, justifies, and normalizes the systematic violence and injustice meted out by police, making heroes out of police and prosecutors who engage in abuse, particularly against people of color. Even a more liberal show like Brooklyn Nine-Nine has come under fire for scenes where the lead characters infringe on people's rights to solve a case. In that show, it was played for comedy.
2, 3, 4.
Recently, the Netflix film Project Power came out and was clearly trying to show the way American society disenfranchises African Americans. It also shows us Joseph Gordon-Levitt as a cop who unironically does Dirty Harry impressions. Now, before you tell me 2015 was a different time, this show began development in 2013 and was in production when the Black Lives Matter movement started in Ferguson, Missouri in August of 2014 following the murder of 18-year-old Michael Brown by police officer Darren Wilson. But this goes back farther. In 1966, 3 years before the Stonewall Uprising, trans women and drag queens protested being targeted by police at the Compton cafeteria in San Francisco. We were tired of being arrested for nothing, arrested for being who we wanted to be, thrown in jail for obstructing the sidewalk, thrown in jail for dressing like a woman, because in those days it was illegal. Anything they could think of to make their quota or just to make our lives a living hell they would do, says Felicia Flames Elizondo in an article for The Advocate. 3 years later, many LGBTQ folk would be protesting again on June 28, 1969, when New York City police raided the Stonewall Inn, a gay club located in Greenwich Village in New York City. The police manhandled patrons and employees, which sparked an uproar. Protests lasted for 6 days as New York residents decried treatment at the hands of the police. According to a 2013 report by the Anti-Violence Project, trans people are 3.7 times more likely to experience police violence and 7 times more likely to experience physical violence when interacting with police than cisgender victims and survivors. This year, we've seen multiple examples of police violence against trans men and women. For instance, the deaths of Tony McDade and Layleen Polanco. McDade was shot by police while Polanco was left to die in her cell after multiple seizures while officers stood outside her cell and laughed. Police brutality is not new, and police brutality towards trans people is not new. The Wachowskis, as 2 trans women, could have been more aware of this when writing Will Gorski and all his Chicago pals, but they weren't. Possibly due to being wealthy and white, or just maybe they didn't think about it in that way. Although much of the Wachowskis' work is critical of power structures that push down on people, the rich and the powerful, etc., it seems that they have critiqued that in the abstract without maybe sussing out some particular issues that face real people in a real-world setting. But, you know, I hope that, like the rest of us, they're still learning. Maybe the 4th Matrix will have Neo look at the camera and say ACAB. That would be fun. Now, when it comes to Will's writing, some of you may be asking, does Will Gorski glorify cops? The answer is, yeah, kinda. In Season 1, we see a lot of what is typical in uncritical police narratives. Will abuses the rights of average citizens and circumvents that old red tape when it suits his purposes, illegally looking up records and CCTV footage and so on without express permission or warrants or whatever.
Paperwork's in the back office, but without some sort of warrant or something.
Hey, look, warrant's gonna go right to your bosses. We probably have to file with corporate headquarters too, right? Just to be thorough. Yeah. Trust me, man, you do not want that.
Even one of the first scenes we see of Will shows him waking up from a nightmare to grab a gun off his bedside table and wave it around in what is presumably a populated apartment building. And then when he goes to try and get a neighbor to turn down his music, he eventually yells,
"Hey, open up! This is the police!"
and breaks down the door. Luckily, nobody's there, so he didn't directly abuse anybody's rights, but yeah, that's not great. But the show does go out of its way to say that Will is one of the good ones, not like those other bad cops.
Gangbangers ate cops. Cops ate gangbangers. Like dogs ate cats. With any luck, there'll be a few less cats in the world.
In episode 1, Will and his partner Diego find a young boy who has been shot in an act of gang violence. Diego says they should just let the kid die because ambulances wouldn't get there in time, and also because he's probably a member of a gang who would let a cop die if their roles were reversed.
But you do not want to stand there and let this kid die either. That's what he'd do if it was you or me.
The child even points a gun at Will when he first enters the room, as if to further prove Diego's point. Will still takes him to the hospital, has to convince an African-American nurse to stabilize him despite this.
Are you new? You need to go and get an ambulance and take him to Mount Sinai.
The kid's gonna be dead before we get there.
I'm sorry, it's policy.
What kind of policy lets a kid die?
Which, I don't know a lot about how hospitals work, but I'm pretty sure a hospital would at least stabilize a kid who's bleeding out before shipping him off to another facility. But even if the policy thing is real, his partner's complete lack of care for this child's life, followed by Will begging this nurse to see to the kid's injuries, paints Will as a good boy. Not like those other heartless people, many of whom are people of color, which makes this whole scene even more tone-deaf, honestly.
If he lives and he kills someone, let's say a cop, how you gonna feel about that?
Good lord, lady, that's not even your job. Why do you care? In later episodes, other cops will show dislike or distrust towards Will because he went out of his way to save the life of a child who literally everybody else has written off.
But if this punk ends up killing somebody, well then, you gotta live with that.
Now, I would guess, pure speculation here, but I think they might have decided to make the character Will Gorski a cop because it was an easy justification for a tactical skill set. All of the Sense8s have a unique skill they bring to the table, and that's kind of Will's thing. Plus, being in law enforcement allows him to go on these fact-finding missions that many of the other characters couldn't go on. It gives him access to resources and records, so when he has to try and find out who this person is, or go watch some CCTV footage, he can do that. I mean, Nomi can do that too with her hacker skills, but I'm guessing that was the intent behind making him a cop. I would also guess that maybe the then recent outcry against police brutality in Ferguson might have been the reason for the almost absurd amount of time the show spends justifying, yes, Will is a cop, but he's a nice cop. By season 2, Will is mostly a cop in name only, but the show still harps on it as one of his defining positive characteristics.
I miss my cop.
He missed you. Every cop knows there are times where the only choice you have left is to defend yourself. Okay, my bad cop feeling about this is buzzing.
And also his partner Diego says a lot of shit like this.
With any luck, there'll be a few less cats in the world.
And he's a character we're also supposed to like.
He's a good cop.
Like I've said before on this channel, I don't mind watching stuff with problems, I just think it's important to view things with a critical eye. Media can often espouse ideas either intentionally or unintentionally. That's why I spend so much time harping about representation and feminism and stuff. All art is political, and Hernando agrees with me.
Art is political. Never more so than when insisting it is not.
And then you go and watch, say, Dirty Harry, and you might think, yeah, look at this good cop doing good work.
You're lucky I'm not indicting you for assault with intent to commit murder.
Yeah, he's breaking laws and doesn't know what Miranda rights are.
Where the hell does it say you've got a right to kick down doors, torture suspects, deny medical attention and legal counsel? Where have you been? Does Escobedo ring a bell? Miranda?
But it's good. It's justice. There's a great video series from Jack Saint on the problems of police and media, and I'll link it down below. Basically, I'm probably not going to buy a movie ticket anytime soon for, I don't know, a RoboCop movie or Speed 3. This time they're riding bikes. because I do think the media's fetishization of our current law enforcement system needs to die. But a show like Sense8, which is also unabashedly queer and accepting of people all over the world, well, as long as we recognize the ideas that are maybe outdated and don't let them inform our perceptions, I would totally like people to watch Sense8. But I'll understand anybody being completely put off by the show because of how Will and his friends are written. Honestly, I like his character best when he's helping the other Sense8s, using his planning and tactical knowledge and standing at the center of the busy storm that is his cluster with the plan that might save the day. And, you know, abolish qualified immunity and defund the police. And with that, let's talk about Season 2.
Bring it, bitch.
So we've talked about a few issues I have with the show. Now let's dig into Season 2, because hoo boy, there's plenty to discuss. I mean, any show that can flip genres on a dime, from Bollywood musical to heist film to boardroom drama, would be pretty dense. The show would continue to weave fluidly between genres and characters, but now the bond between the 8 of our cluster is tighter, so their plot lines are even more interwoven. First, Will and Riley spend a lot of the season shacked up in Amsterdam. Will is on drugs now because this fogs up the connection between him and Whispers, but on occasion the asshole slips through, and he and Will are basically in an extended mental game of cat and mouse. At one point, Will's eavesdropping finally gets them some good info, the name of a higher-up in BPO, and they even get Milton locked up for a bit, and Will goes to meet that higher-up at a museum. Apparently, he's one of the good guys who wants to steer BPO in a less ethically horrendous direction, and he gives Will these.
These are psi blockers, the same pills Milton takes to immunize himself for a period of time.
And then Whispers, drone puppeteers a lady into murdering that guy, a la Niles Bolger back in Season 1. Will escapes the museum with some help from the gang, including one of my favorite bits.
I saw the terrorist. What is the one coming doing this?
In Mexico, Lido, Hernando, and Daniela spend a lot of the season facing the fallout for Joaquin releasing those photos of Hernando and Lido. They get kicked out of their apartment, and Lido just generally has to struggle being a publicly out-of-the-closet actor in Mexico. There's this one scene right after he gets dropped by his agent where he gets in an elevator with this young guy who is probably an actor and maybe closeted like Lido was. We don't know for sure, the scene is almost entirely without dialogue, but he just out of nowhere reaches out and hugs Lido. It's lovely. But Lido spends a chunk of this season hiding and depressed by the destruction of his career. Nomi spends a lot of the season in hiding as well, while Amanita pretends everything is normal and still works at that bookstore and tries to avoid this pesky FBI agent named Bendix. He's the worst, by the way. They spend some time hiding with Bug, who continues to be excellent.
Hello, angels.
They also eventually clue him in on the Sense8 thing, and he's totally down, and also a huge fan of Lido's work, leading to another favorite scene where they watch one of Lido's movies at the theater, and Lido sits with Bug as Bug talks about why he loves this movie. It's so sweet. Also, Nomi's sister is getting married and asks Nomi to be her maid of honor. Sun spends the first half of the season in prison, but after her brother pays people to kill her twice, and the second time it nearly works, Sun and one of her cellmates escape. It's another really great sequence.
Where did the banker's daughter learn to be a car thief? Other lives.
After escaping prison, we meet this cutie, Detective Moon, who, well, first off, back when they were teenagers, Sun beat him in a martial arts tournament, and Moon seems to be really into a woman who can kick his ass, which, what a mood. Either way, he also seems to have picked up on the fact that Sun's alleged crimes might not be as cut and dried as the records say. Also, in one scene, he challenges her to a sparring match, and it turns into the flirtiest fistfight I've ever seen. I freaking love this show. Capheus is even more of a local celebrity in Season 2. When a reporter interviews him on TV, his speech makes waves in the community, and also charms this reporter, whose name is Zakea. Then, when the price of water rises in his town, Capheus attempts to intervene and help people when the protesting starts. And the guys even agree to give them their water, although that's probably a temporary thing. In Mumbai, Kala is now married to Rajan and struggles in their relationship. One time she broke his dick. No, I'm not kidding.
A phantom fracture.
It was an accident.
Your love causes pain.
But their struggles mostly center around the fact that sometimes he seems very sweet and other times it seems like he's extremely embroiled in shady business dealings he might have inherited from his family. The pharmaceutical company his family runs does things like send medicines that don't meet regulations to Africa, and he's like,
This is how this business works.
He'll walk this back later, but most of Kala's time in Season 2 is spent balancing her concern for and about Rajan with her growing closeness to Wolfgang. In Berlin, after Wolfgang basically murdered his whole crime family, there was a power vacuum in the city, and a lot of criminal groups are interested in Wolfgang, either to his benefit or detriment. Felix gets a club out of it, and Wolfgang meets Sebastian Fuchs, a man running his own criminal empire, and Lila Ficchini, another Sense8 who is out for her own ends while pretending to date Fuchs. She spends a lot of time messing with Wolfgang and eventually meets him at a restaurant where she explains that she works with Fuchs and even with the likes of BPO and Whispers in order to basically secure a city that would be exclusively for Sense8s. She views it as a potential paradise without pesky humans and invites Wolfgang to join her quest. He says no.
Take your fucking Mysore and the 3 guns Fuchs hired. And fuck off.
I'm going to enjoy scraping you off my shoe like the dog shit you are.
And we get one of the most insane, incredible sequences ever.
Bring it, bitch.
I love this shit so much. Oh my god, did you see them all take the hit? The show is bananas. So, back in Amsterdam, Riley and Will, along with the cluster, decide they need resources if they're going to fight BPO. They need contacts, and they need to find other Sense8s. So Riley DJs a concert hoping some other Sense8s might come out of the woodwork, and it's a cool bit that happens to actually work. And she meets Doctor Who. I'm kidding. This is Hoy, played by Sylvester McCoy, best known for playing the 7th Doctor back in the day. He's Scottish and says things like this.
I'm no about to be trusted by a DJ from Iceland with hair the colour of a smurf. Come on now, Miss Blue.
He's great, and also involved with this mysterious Sense8 network called the Archipelago. So when they ask for some information on Whisper's whereabouts, there is an incredible sequence of the Sense8 network in action. Also, this very mysterious lady named Bodhi shows up to be mysterious at Riley while she goes to Chicago to follow up a lead on the whole history of Angelica and BPO. In Chicago, Will and Riley learn that Will's dad is dying. We've gotten a few hints throughout the season that he's not well.
Are you drinking?
What do you care?
You're not supposed to be drinking.
You're not here!
But Will's been unable to see him because he's been branded a terrorist or God knows what. It's pretty sad, honestly, and even after Will's been getting cleaned up, it's not really safe for him to go home. So Riley goes to see his dad as he's dying in the hospital, and somehow Will is able to say goodbye to his dad through Riley.
Willie. I knew you'd come.
You see me, Dad.
My boy.
This scene made me cry a lot. In San Francisco, Nomi gets to go to her sister's wedding. When a guy is gross to her while walking down the aisle, this happens.
Did you say what I think you said?
And then Bendix the FBI douchebag shows up to arrest Nomi right there in the church. Amanita realizes that his warrant might be expired because of a hacker thing they did.
Nomi Marks is one of the most wanted fugitives in this city.
Prove it! Show us the warrant, Agent Bendix.
This whole scene is pretty great. The best part, of course, is when her dad actually stands up for her.
She did something. She did some kind of hacking. This is bullshit.
Take your hands off my daughter.
He's never called me daughter.
It's really nice. So is the speech she gives at the reception.
To Tegan, the best sister anyone could hope for. I love you. And I wish you and Tom all the best.
Capheus's recent actions have led to enough notice that he's approached to run for local office. Eventually he agrees, and he's running against a guy called Mandiba, who is apparently extremely shady and releases false campaign ads. And at one point, Mandiba incites a riot at Capheus's first campaign appearance, and this guy from the superpower gang shows up and actually helps him out, which is neat. Also, he and Zakea start dating, and it's cute. Leto spends a while being unemployed and depressed. It's especially funny when he pops in with other members of his cluster and just mopes around their apartments. Eventually, Daniela gets Lito an excellent role in an artsy American film, and so the gang goes to America, and the Wachowskis and co. take this opportunity to make lots of fun of the Hollywood machine. In Korea, Sun is keeping a low profile so she doesn't get caught by the police or her brother. And there's a really funny sequence starring a depressed, unemployed Lito who keeps on appearing to Sun like this.
What are you doing?
I'm practicing.
For what?
For my future as a homeless and employable failure.
Seriously, this is so funny. But then it ends up being really wholesome once Sun explains her situation is pretty damn bad, but she isn't crying about it.
My parents are dead. And my only brother will kill me if I don't kill him first. If anyone should be laying on the bed crying, it should be me.
But you will never do that. Maybe that's why I'm here, son.
And that's really nice. She ends up going undercover at a big party that Junki is putting on for their company so she can get close to him and probably kill him. Lito helps her out here because he knows how to do stunt bartending. In the final episode of the season, Sun is at Junki's party and sees her brother get approached by Detective Moon. Apparently, the detective has found out about his shady activities and Junki shoots him in the middle of this party. So Sun goes full Terminator here in nothing but a sports bra and go-go shorts, and the whole gang backs her up in a multitude of fun and interesting ways. At one point, Nomi hacks some streetlights to hit the police van that Sun is in, and this whole sequence is pretty amazing. In the end, she doesn't kill Junki, and she manages to get away with the help of this guy. His name is Puck. He's a creep and a Sense8. Riley met him once before, and he's aggressively unpleasant. And yes, he styled his hair like Riley. Yes, it's weird.
What's with the hair?
He's doing bad.
But whatever. He gives them some info, which more or less amounts to Whispers is on the hunt. Also, Nomi and Amanita propose to each other in the cutest scene ever.
Amanita Kaplan, will you marry me? Absolutely.
Relationship goals. And then Wolfgang is basically in hiding because of everything going on, and then gets caught by Leela and BPO.
Imagine my surprise when I found out how badly the cannibal wanted you.
It's really bad.
Hello, Wolfgang.
Milton tortures Wolfgang to try and track the rest of the cluster. Also, everybody feels it when a torture happens, and it's really bad.
Call an ambulance, please! Can't get to the hospital. What are you talking about? Come on, what's wrong with you, baby? We have to go to London.
But don't worry, Will has a plan. Basically, he does a tricksy on Whispers that allows the gang to capture him and smuggle him out of a BPO facility in a body bag. They also grab Jonas because he's been shady lately. The final shot of the season is 7 of our 8 Sense8s in this van, together, in the same room for the first time. And then Netflix went and canceled the fucking show. And now, let's talk about the creators of Sense8.
I create life!
So, the original concept for Sense8 did begin with the Wachowski sisters. Oh, and if you've been wondering about the lack of behind-the-scenes clips of Lily, she didn't come out as transgender until after season 1 and wasn't involved with the production of season 2, and out of respect for her, I don't want to use clips of her pre-transition, so just, yeah. But anyways, the Wachowskis have had a buck-wild career, so indulge me because I want to talk about them. I'll get to J. Michael Straczynski too, just you wait. So the sisters grew up in Chicago with 2 other sisters. Lana Wachowski went to Bard College and Lily went to Emerson, but they both dropped out before completing their degrees. They started a carpentry business together and spent some time writing comics for Clive Barker's Hellraiser and Nightbreed series in the early 90s. Their first foray into film was actually a screenplay that never went anywhere. It was a story about cannibals eating rich people, which was supposedly too dark, but sounds great in 2020. Hey ladies, could you revive that one? From there, they wrote the screenplay for the 1995 Sylvester Stallone film Assassins. Brian Helgeland was brought in to do a pass on the screenplay after them. Hey, we know that guy. Anyway, his pass drastically changed the screenplay to the point that the Wachowskis actually tried to get their names removed from the film, but the Writers Guild wouldn't allow that. Although, their work on that film was enough to catch the attention of executive producer Dino De Laurentiis, who financed their directorial debut, Bound, and gave them free rein on the story, which was a lesbian crime thriller that practically dripped with style, albeit on a much smaller scale than their next film, which would change the film landscape for years to come. If you haven't seen The Matrix, first off, what are you doing? Stop this video and go watch The Matrix. It was genre-defining, and movies and TV shows have been borrowing from it ever since, either in parody or in homage and the lifting of techniques that they pioneered or the style that they popularized. I cannot overstate how much this movie rocked our collective world in the year 1999. After that, they wrote and directed the second and third films of the Matrix trilogy, which I'm not super into, but they still feature all the style and ideas that were quickly becoming the Wachowskis' calling card. They also feature Hugo Weaving being absolutely bananas. From there, they wrote and produced an adaptation of the dystopian Alan Moore comic V for Vendetta.
Voila! In view, a humble vaudevillian veteran, cast vicariously as both victim and villain by the vicissitudes of fate.
This movie also made some pretty strong impacts on pop culture. Maybe not to the same degree as The Matrix, but yeah, this hit hard. Then in 2008, they wrote and directed the eye-popping, high-saturation LSD trip that is Speed Racer, adapted from the classic 80s anime. This movie gave me a headache and fueled the night of my roommates doing this around our living room.
I'm gonna get some water.
In 2012, they adapted the David Mitchell novel Cloud Atlas into an expansive epic that was sometimes beautiful and often messy.
If you compel bone in my life, you burn them about the true truth.
Oh, and if you're wondering, yes, this movie features a series of white actors, and also Keith David, using prosthetics to do yellowface.
Now, we don't have time to unpack all of that.
And then in 2015, they wrote and directed the absolutely batshit crazy Jupiter Ascending, which I love with all my heart and soul. You should watch this movie. It feels like watching the horniest, most involved fanfiction for a show you've never heard of, and it's amazing.
I love dogs. I've always loved dogs. I am not your damn mother.
I create life!
And I destroy it.
This movie is a masterpiece. Oh, and there really isn't a good spot for this, but I just want to let you know that in an interview they did around the release of the first Matrix, the Wachowskis said that if they had a creative disagreement, they resolved it by asking their mom, and I think that's really cute. I hope they still do that. And then, back in 2013, the Wachowskis began developing a television series. Sense8 apparently began life one night when the Wachowski sisters had a talk about the ways technology simultaneously unites and divides us. And out of that paradox, Sense8 was born. The Wachowskis had been wanting to collaborate with J. Michael Straczynski, partly because they liked his work and had apparently been friends for a while, but also because he had a familiarity with writing for television, and since this was their first attempt at the small screen, they wanted to work with someone who knew the format. So the pair invited Straczynski up to Lana Wachowski's house in San Francisco for a weekend stay to spitball ideas. In an interview with IndieWire, Straczynski said that he, Lana, and Lily were big on notions of connectivity, and by the end of that weekend, they had apparently developed about 3 hours of the show. Maybe not 3 episodes, but one big one. From there, they dedicated themselves to the concept and prepared to pitch the show around to studios. Netflix was the first studio they pitched, and according to Straczynski, it was an unusual pitch, less about action and incident, and instead about gender and identity and sexuality. To their surprise, Netflix loved the idea and bought it up almost immediately. What I find interesting looking over the filmography of the Wachowski sisters is that after The Matrix, and to a lesser extent V for Vendetta, it seems like, for a time, they were handed blank checks and told to follow their bliss. And they absolutely did, bless them both. I'm endlessly fascinated by the strange, heady stories they choose to tell. Even when I don't love the end product, their films are always interesting. Their writing is full of ideas and philosophy and a grand scale of humanity, as well as an abundance of visual style. It's kind of amazing, but admittedly the future for them does look a little different. As I said, Lily Wachowski left Sense8 after season 1. According to an interview with actress Jamie Clayton, it was to focus on her well-being after a somewhat tumultuous coming out in 2016. The plan was for her to return for season 3. Of course, the show was cancelled after season 2, so that never came to pass. Since then, it seems that Lily has largely stepped back from filmmaking and the Hollywood machine. In an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, she described an exhaustion and frustration with the industry, and a dissatisfaction with the end result of all the effort involved in producing a film. But she is producing and writing a Showtime comedy called Work in Progress, so good for her. Lana Wachowski stayed on for Sense8's full run, and is now working on a 4th Matrix, and again, good for her. And when it comes to collaborating with J. Michael Straczynski, I'll be upfront here, I'm not nearly as familiar with his work as I am with the Wachowskis. I've done some reading about Babylon 5 and I watched the pilot episode, but that show was 5 seasons, and I didn't want to watch 5 whole seasons just to better understand his influence on a show that only lasted for 2. I know his writing on Babylon 5 was often praised for its dense, character-driven storytelling as well as its immense planning and world-building for multi-season arcs. And I do think he had an influence on Sense8. He was one of the main writers. I checked out some films he wrote, like the hyper-violent, goofy ninja assassin and the tight drama Changeling, but without doing the full deep dive on Babylon 5, the output that was his most successful and the most under his creative control, I find his influence mostly in the absence of the Wachowski thumbprint, which is all over Sense8. Anybody who wants to talk about Straczynski's writing style in the comments, I'm happy to listen. But overall, it seems that this collaboration was a perfect one for all of them. The Wachowskis' high-minded operatic stories were, I think, grounded by Straczynski's thoughtful character work and planning. And again, I don't have a good place for this, but Straczynski said in an IndieWire interview that he was actually the one to pitch the trans hacker character Nomi, and when he did, Lana apparently shot up out of her chair, dancing around, going, "It wasn't me this time, it was him, it was his idea." Jamie Clayton said in an E! Entertainment interview that Nomi's story about getting abused by a bunch of young boys in the school gym showers actually came from Lana's own life. And in another interview, Freema Agyeman said that the character of Amanita was inspired by Lana's own wife. And I just think those are a bunch of interesting facts. Also, there are several references to their other works peppered throughout the show, particularly in season 2.
Abrasics Electronics, still in business.
I see you, Lana. No, really, I do. She's right there. Basically, I think the Wachowskis are an excellent case study when it comes to their work as a pair of auteurs, but also in their collaborations with other writers and directors on Sense8, I think they found an excellent balance to their stylistic excesses. Working with other writers like Straczynski, and in season 2, the writer's room added David Mitchell, author of Cloud Atlas, and Alexander Heman, who wrote the novels Nowhere Man and Lazarus Project. Over both seasons, they worked with directors like Dan Glass, who did visual effects on the Matrix films, and James McTeague, who directed V for Vendetta and Ninja Assassin, and Tom Tykwer, who you might know for his film Run, Lola Run, and he also directed Cloud Atlas with the sisters. I've talked before about how much collaborations can be good for film and TV shows. The original Star Wars trilogy was improved by collaborations with editor Marcia Lucas as well as other writers like Lee Brackett and Lawrence Kasdan. Mad Max Fury Road would not be the movie it is without input from Eve Ensler and the editing of Margaret Sixel. Into the Spider-Verse had 2 writers and 3 directors. Basically, I think some projects can blossom when lots of artists collaborate, and the Wachowskis worked with a lot of people on Sense8, and it was to the show's benefit. The end result was a show that managed to be big and small, grand and detailed. Much like the cluster of Sense8s in the show, I think you could say all the writers and directors on Sense8 were made stronger through the work they did together. This is not the work of a singular voice, but of a collective. As the show would say, I am also a we. Now, production on the show was wild. Since the series was devoted to filming on location, they block shot everything. They would spend a month or whatever in Mexico City, filming 10 episodes worth of stuff with Leto, and other castmates would come in and out, and then they would move on to the next location. Due to the show's format and premise, that could often mean filming an entire scene on location in Mumbai and then filming it again in Berlin. In the words of Straczynski, it unified the cast in a very unusual sort of way. We block shot it, so, for instance, we shot all of the San Francisco scenes with Nomi first, and because we're a subjective camera, we don't go outside our character's point of view. You're always in someone's point of view. She, therefore, was in every single scene, every single day, for like 3 weeks, to carry the burden of all that with the other cast supporting her. Then, like in the Olympics, she hands off the baton to Will, played by Brian J. Smith, in Chicago. Now he's in every single scene, and now the rest of the cast has to support him. He stands for Chicago. And then we go to Tuppence Middleton in London, and she has to stand for England. And it caused them to say, we need to support each other because my turn in the barrel's coming. I'm going to need everybody else. And they scheduled the location shooting in such a way where, for season 1, they filmed at the actual Pride Parade in San Francisco, the 4th of July fireworks celebration in Chicago, and the Ganesha Chaturthi Hindu Festival in Mumbai. And in season 2, they filmed at the Sao Paulo Pride Parade in Brazil, which is said to be the biggest pride parade in the world. And then there's the cinematography on the show. Specifically, due to the nature of the mind sharing, there's a lot of tricks that are done in camera to lend to the feel of each character's multiplicity. A lot of it is just one actor ducking out and another stepping in. It's a basic trick, but it's so fun every time they do it. This one in particular is my favorite. And then of course there's the editing of this show, because this show can montage like no other. Because of the fluidity of space and time that comes with the connection between these 8 characters, we can slip between moments all over the world. The show was edited by Joseph Jatsali, Joe Hobeck, and Fiona Kolbeck, and honestly, let's just clap it out for them. The editing of this show is very purposeful, and due to the way the show was shot, it's clear that a lot of my favorite sequences were found in the editing room. The I Feel You montage in the finale, the birthday montage in the Christmas special. There are many examples I can cite. I love this editing that centers so much around evoking an emotion rather than bothering to clearly establish time and space, since the show is so loosey-goosey with those concepts anyway. And these characters are all over the world, experiencing different pieces of joy or lust or sadness. I'm sure you can guess, but it's the joy that's my favorite. Or the peace. I love when this show will stop in its tracks and show us an amazing sequence of our characters just having a nice day, enjoying a good song, dancing together, laughing together. Although they are often far-flung from each other, their bond allows them to share in emotions. All sorts of emotions. But no other show can quite do what this show does to express such a pure, in-the-moment kind of happiness. Honestly, it might be one of my favorite things about Sense8. Even when there's a lot of darkness happening, everybody can stop and enjoy some fireworks with Will, or do some meditation with Sun, or just dance and have fun. And letting us revel with them is one of Sense8's greatest strengths. So with that, let's talk about the end of Sense8.
I'm not going anywhere till someone tells me just what the hell is going on here?
Sense8 was a wildly expensive program to produce. Each episode cost an estimated $9 million. Game of Thrones, for comparison, cost about $6 million per episode. And Netflix still doesn't really release their viewer numbers, but they reportedly weren't seeing enough bang for the buck, and so a month after Season 2 was released, in May of 2017, it was announced that Netflix was canceling the show. And people were furious on so many levels. Sense8 was canceled around the same time as other acclaimed diverse programs like The Get Down, not to mention the massive cliffhanger Season 2 ended on, with Wolfgang's fate up in the air, and the first glimpse of all of our Sense8s in the room together for the first time. And that was it? The show ended there? People were pissed. Netflix released a statement on social media saying, "To our Sense8 family, we've seen the petitions, we've read the messages, we know you want to #renew Sense8, and we wish we could #bring back Sense8 for you, but unfortunately we can't." Brian J. Smith, aka Will Gorski, who has been through being on a canceled show before, spoke up saying that they had seen the signs that the end was coming for Sense8 and thanked viewers for the outpouring of love for the show. But fans were not prepared to call it quits. There were petitions. Somebody actually dug up this Netflix request page, which I definitely recall spamming a few times. People mailed flip-flops to the Netflix office, which is a reference to this scene, by the way. And about a month after cancellation, Netflix relented and announced there would be a big finale episode to wrap up the series and provide some actual closure. Fans were elated. Lana Wachowski released a statement thanking fans, and all of the press surrounding the finale made it very clear who made this happen.
Thank you!
Thank you, man. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you from Swarovski!
And so with that, let's talk about the finale, Amor, Vincit, Omnia, which is Latin for Love Conquers All. So the finale begins with some more flashbacks into Wolfgang's past while he floats in a semi-conscious stupor. Kala visits him when she can, but he's not doing well. Meanwhile, the cluster is all together in Paris, and it's amazing to just see them all together. I love the fluidity of geography in these scenes because even when they're so close together, sometimes they pop into a space mentally rather than physically because, I don't know, it's Tuesday. I think this is fun. Hernando and Danny are there now and have been recently filled in on the Sense8 situation.
So right now Will is talking to Riley.
And the sun. Check it out! And now confused.
One of many unavoidable shortcuts in the finale is most characters don't have long to absorb this whole Sense8 situation.
This is how spiritual Jean-Claude.
Only Rajan gets a lot of screen time to process this, and I really wanted the scene of Hernando and Danny learning what was going on since this was how we left them in season 2.
Call an ambulance! Call an ambulance, please! I'll get to the hospital. What are you talking about? Come on, what's wrong with you, baby?
But anyway, everybody's planning how to get Wolfgang out of BPO's hands, and they've got Milton, aka Whispers, as leverage. We get several scenes of him being creepy and horrible in the cell when they have to go down and give him his blocker shots so he can't contact Leela or whatever. Upstairs, Jonas is being kept in slightly better condition, but he's being held too and continues to be maddeningly vague at every turn. Oh, at one point, Wolfgang tries to escape and considers killing himself to save the cluster, and Kala stops him, and my trashy shipper heart likes this scene a lot.
You can't give up. You.
But I do have to point out this is, I don't know, like the 5th time that suicide has come up as a way to save folks and as some kind of self-sacrifice or like just as a plot point. This will come up again in this episode, and I don't know what to do with it, but there it is. Oh, also, those are all the people BPO has for their drone program, aka the thing where Whispers pilots a Sense8 they lobotomized. Yikes!
Bug? Angel.
Bug joins the gang here, and have I mentioned how much I love Bug?
You've multiplied.
This man is a goddamn delight in every scene.
What's up, Born Free?
He shows up with some hacker tech to help out Nomi so they can amp up their search into the head of BPO and the drone program. At one point, the authorities show up, leading to this whole bit of business, including Nomi and Lido going back in when Amanita, Dani, and Hernando almost get caught.
Family, we're coming!
Of course, Will and Sun help out too.
No! Hot damn! I've been waiting to see that!
And all of this gives Jonas time to escape.
I'm on your side.
Oh, and Rajan shows up in the middle of all of this and gets the Sense8 crash course.
I'm not going anywhere till someone tells me just what in the hell is going on here?
They tell him off screen, I guess. And oh my god, this shot is so funny. Why is Bug so funny? And it's here we figure out Rajan really is just a good dude.
So you believe me?
You and all these people out there medically insane? I don't think so. So what other choice do I have?
Maybe one who was embroiled in some shady shit, but A+ boy. We find out from a newscast that Sun's brother is getting arrested and going to actually pay for all the crime he did, and Sun uses a boner phone. A boner phone? Oh, Sun uses a boner phone. And Sun uses a burner phone to call Detective Moon.
Are you saying you miss me, Detective Moon?
I miss you like I've never missed anyone in my life.
Oh my god, they're so cute. I could die.
Not you?
I miss you.
Oh, and Riley has a mental meeting with Hoy, and these two, basically they tell her to kill Whispers. Apparently he's the only one who can pilot the drone program. If he's dead, then that villainy would be cut off at the knees. Then everybody bolts because BPO is trying to purge the archipelago, and there's a terrible moment when it looks like Hoy will kill himself rather than be caught, but...
Let's nip in the bud all this nonsense about dying. How did you get here? By taxi, you great numpty. It's so safe. Well, it's a great deal safer now since I chucked the bullets out the window.
Apparently this legend has it under control. And I guess BPO's whole thing is basically to annihilate and subjugate all Sense8s. Real mustache twirling stuff here from the head of BPO, who keeps his face hidden for reasons. So the whole gang set up a meeting with Leela to exchange Wolfgang for Whispers. It happens in a club and they plan for the eventual double cross, so it all works out and they get Wolfgang out. Of course, Leela also gets Whispers, which is bad, but, you know, for now, hooray! Sun actually gets separated from the group in all the chaos and almost gets caught, but guess who shows up to help her out? The world's cutest detective! Another A+ boy. Honestly, look at them go!
Are you going to tell me why you went to all this trouble, detective?
Well, I'm not really good with words, Miss Buck. Would you mind if I showed you instead?
This is my trash. So from there we get to briefly enjoy the cluster, all safe and together again. There's a hilarious moment when Kala is sitting with Bug in a car and she's afraid to approach Wolfgang and Rajan because...
What rules do I follow?
And of course, Bug points out,
since you can in fact be in more than two places at the same time, I would suggest that there are no rules.
So this indecisive queen makes out with her husband and her boyfriend. Oh, and I also love how quickly Wolfgang just vibes with Rajan, because he knows from his connection with Kala, and he's seen through Rajan's actions taking part in the Save Wolfgang escapade, that he's a good dude, so they just vibe. It delights me. So they take a minute to have a good time, which is then interrupted when Bodhi pops up again. She's popped up once or twice already. Now she shows up and all the Sense8s can see her in spite of only Will and Riley having met her, and that breaks some rules of the show, to which everybody says, "It's Tuesday, don't worry about it." She introduces us to another mysterious ancient group called the Lacuna. They probably would have been more organically teased out over a few seasons, but whatever. They're here, and Bodhi delivers this baller line.
The neutrality in the face of such evil is complicity.
And then this lady tells the gang that Whispers wants to use the drone program to live forever and that they need to take him down. From there, everybody has a great time traveling to Naples, which leads to this aforementioned favorite sequence. They all take a minute to enjoy the song I Feel You by Depeche Mode, and it's amazing, and the song slaps, and I love this bit a lot. After this, a bunch of folk are popping in and out. Leela shows up to do some evil monologuing about grand plans. Jonas is there and gone, being mysterious. And once they get to Naples, Puck shows up.
Oh my god.
What?
He's there along with the archipelago to help them plan their next steps. Also, Felix and Diego are here now, and that's fun. Although Capheus's people are notably absent, I wish Jella or Zakea could have joined them here. It sucks how much his storyline gets short-shrifted, but again, I can only assume they intended to build it up better over the seasons. That didn't happen, so alas and alack. So, what happens next? Well, there's a hilarious plot involving everybody pretending to be tourists, but that's all just a ruse so they can get inside this building where Leela may have stashed Whispers. It goes well for a bit. I love watching Moon and Sun kick ass. Hang on, did they make their names Moon and Sun? Oh my god. There's a really fun moment where Kala, with Wolfgang's help, uses a gun and does a cool murder, and Rajan, with no toxic masculinity in sight, is like, wow, can you teach me? And it's Wolfgang teaching through Kala, which I love.
So here's the safety.
Do not point unless you're sure about the target, okay?
Then she gets shot, and initially it's really, really bad.
Is anyone gonna actually do anything? Or are you gonna just let me die in your arms?
You're alive.
She's alive. She's alive.
But I won't be if you don't do something quickly.
Through her connection with Wolfgang, Kala is able to tell them how to treat the wound so she doesn't die. Rajan has some good ideas too, and it's enough to stabilize her and get her to a hospital. Meanwhile, Will chases down Leela and Whispers to a BPO helicopter landing site. Jonas pops up on the way for one last info dump. He's been shot breaking into a BPO facility. He explains that Angelica sabotaged the drone program once before, which is why the chairman of BPO's face is all messed up behind this mask. And then he tells Will that he made a promise to Angelica Angelica to destroy the drone program once and for all, and he wheels in a shit ton of explosives and blows the place up. And then will, with the help of the rest of the cluster, blow up the BPO helicopter with a rocket launcher because of course they fucking do. And from there, it's time for Nomi and Amanita to get married at the Eiffel Tower. It's a last curtain call for the cast and everybody is there now. And okay, Kala's gunshot is fine apparently, and Mr. Hoy made it out just fine.
If it was a film, how wouldn't you believe it?
And then we have this beautiful ceremony with Bug walking Nomi down the aisle.
Thank you for being my family. Thank you for being mine.
And then Nomi and Amanita give the most gorgeous vows.
I'm afraid of things pretending to be permanent because nothing is permanent. But with you, it doesn't scare me. It actually makes me happy, makes me excited. Because inside your arms is the only place I've ever felt like I was home.
And then everybody has one last enormous party. Nomi's mom has her transphobia cured with a pot brownie because we are deep in the Tuesday and everybody wants to know what Kala is going to do about Rajan and Wolfgang. I love how every time somebody asks Wolfgang, he's just like,
I don't know.
I think that's very funny. And well, it turns out the solution was they solved a love triangle with polyamory. I love this show. So we get this last glorious celebration, and then one last big fuck-off orgy. The last line of the show is,
I didn't think such things were possible.
And we end on a used rainbow dildo. Poetic cinema. The entire finale is so wild and gorgeous and wonderful. I've tried to sum up many of the emotions I'm left with in the show's ending, and the best way I can describe it is with a quote from the podcast Welcome to Night Vale, written by Joseph Fink and Jeffrey Craner. I'm gonna paraphrase it a little bit, but the universe is unraveling. It still is. We won the day, we won the battle, we won whatever unit of measurement you care to say that we won. But of course, we did not stop the unraveling of the universe. The universe is not a thing that is. It is not a thing at all. It is the very action of its going. So look at the fleeting stars with fleeting eyes and feel how the earth beneath you gives. It is all a temporary manifestation of particles, and it is all unraveling back to particulate silence. The bustle of the human day will come and will go, and then there will be night. But how beautiful these moments within the dissolve. What a temporary perfection we can find within this passing world. Everything good ever done, everything good that was done today, and all the good people doing it, and back and forward, and all of that beauty within a universe unraveling. Be proud of your place in the cosmos. It is small, and yet it is. How unlikely, how fantastic, and stupid, and excellent. I can't help but admire how the people behind this show threw so much into it. You can see how much thought and care went into the creation of it. I know it's corny, but it truly feels like everybody was so invested in making this incredible, heartfelt show. And a lot of the problems towards the end of the series mostly come down to them being cancelled and having to race to throw together an ending that felt even remotely satisfying. Like, sure, okay, we have 2 Sense8 secret societies we just have to kind of nod our heads at because there just isn't time to develop them. Especially this one featuring the Triad Mom.
I am a trinity of mothers.
And this is the second batch of bad guys in 2 seasons to be taken out by a bazooka. And one character's rampant transphobia is fixed by a magic pot brownie. And I don't care. I just don't. They did an amazing job given what they had to work with, and every time I watch the finale, I smile so hard my face hurts by the end of it. Even this final orgy scene, which I've said before does very little for me personally, makes me smile. Like, you do you, Sense8. At the end of the day, this show was a celebration of love in all its forms. A celebration of wonder and hope and humanity and family. A celebration of the most elemental commonalities of the human experience. We can celebrate all of our differences of race, gender, or sexuality and appreciate that every person in the world grieves or gets scared. But most of all, every person in the world loves. So, first off, sorry this one took so long. Y'all hear about this pandemic depression people are talking about? I think I got it. Also, I live in an apartment with no AC in a city that gets very hot during the summer, so that was a lot. Yes, I know window units are a thing, don't at me. Aside from that, there are some issues I didn't touch on in the video because there wasn't time and I didn't really feel qualified to speak on them, but there's a great Medium article linked in the sources if you want to read up. Oh, and the Nebula thing is not a joke. If you want to watch this video without all the Sense8 logos and nonsense on the, adult scenes from this show, go check it out on Nebula. I think that covers all the basics. Next up, we're doing The Haunting of Bly Manor, and yeah, that's all for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.